The topic of this talk is quick masks. Quick masks are a way to look at your marching ants differently. This gives you a way to see a selection in two different colors rather than outside of a marching ant's border and inside of a marching ant's border. It also gives you extra tools because the marching ants are basically binary. They're off or on. They may indicate something that's more complex, but what you're seeing is an off and on switch. So the quick mask gives you a visual representation of the actual selection. So let me show you. It's a lot easier to do that. The little icon over here is your quick mask icon. You can also use the letter Q, as you can see down here when I scroll over it. You can see the keyboard shortcut is the letter Q to go into quick mask and out of quick mask. One of the issues I had early on when I was using Photoshop was I would hit the letter Q by accident, not realize I was in quick mask mode, and things just weren't working. I had no idea what was going on. If that happens, if you're not sure what's going on, look up at the top of your screen. Let me get this other one out of the way. Look up at the top of your screen where it says the title of the file, and you'll see quick mask right there. It will tell you in a very quick time that you are in quick mask. Just hit the letter Q again and you're out of it. You're back in normal. Okay, so in order to show you what's going on, I'm going to come up here and select this one by color range, because we have a great difference in the color of the subject versus the background in this image, assuming we want to select the flower. I'm going to shift click and get a few more of these colors in here. We don't care too much about the very center because that's so easy to just come in with a lasso tool and pick up later, but we do want to get the stuff near the edge. Okay, so we're going to click OK, and there is our selection. Now if we look at this as quick mask, that's what's happening there. The areas that are red are the areas that are not selected. The areas that are not covered in red are the areas that are selected. The clear areas are selected. So remember those areas in the center? Rather than using the lasso tool, if we're in quick mask, we can simply go to the brush tool, and I'm going to put it at 100% and make it smaller, and come in here and just paint in those areas that are now covered in the red mask. It's a little hard to see, so the other thing you can do is double click on the quick mask options and pick a color that's different than your foreground and your background color to make it a little easier to see. Okay, go back to quick mask that way, and now you can see a little bit more easily. There's some blue there, and maybe just a little bit there. Make my brush smaller so I don't go outside. And right in here I'm seeing blue as well. I can just go all over the middle there. So we have now made a cleaned up selection that was started in color range, and we cleaned it up in quick mask, and we also changed the option for quick mask. Now to get out of that again, just hit the letter Q. You've got your marching ants, copy and paste to a new layer, and there we have our lovely selection. Okay, we've got some areas that didn't quite get selected and some that got overly selected over here. You can just clean those up afterwards with the eraser tool, or if we go back to quick masking, I can make a selection by Command or Control clicking there, and oh yeah, I see, whoops, there we go. I see areas that aren't quite covered up here now, and I can switch to the black brush to get rid of the selected parts that are outside of the flower, the parts we don't want to have in our selection. So that looks pretty good to me. And this was the last and most important hint that I gave you guys in the lecture notes. Zoom in. Okay, so you're going to see that. I'm going to get rid of these two layers. just Option and click on the trash can to get rid of them, or you can just hit the delete key now with these later versions of Photoshop. Copy and paste, and you should see a little bit better. And the stuff that's way outside, that's so easy to just go with the lasso tool and select those. So I wouldn't even worry about trying to figure out where those are in the mask, or if you have them. If you've got areas that are semi-transparent like that, just copy the layer over itself and then merge them all together. And that will really clean that up quite quickly. You've got a little area that's starting to show up here. Come in with a lasso tool, or you can, actually the lasso tool will do a fine job in here. I'm using my track pad here, so I'm not using anything at all delicate. Oftentimes, most of the time, I use my Wacom tablet. It's supposed to be pronounced like the word walk, W-A-L-K, with the O-M at the end, and that's a little bit easier to do those things. But right now I have a pile of notes on it, so I can cover what I need to cover for the topics this week. Okay, so there's a selection made with color range and the quick mask tool. Let me go back, and now I'm going to make another selection, and this time I'm just going to make a rectangular selection around the flower and go into quick mask mode. Okay, now this time I'm going to go back to the red. Just double click on this. It may take you out of quick mask mode when you do the options here. There we go. Or it may not, depending on what you've clicked on accidentally. It did the first time, didn't that time. Okay, so say for instance you want a nice soft edge. You don't want to specifically select just the flower, but you want a soft, fuzzy, feathery edge to this. Or, you know, there's many different ways that you could look at this and modify that border. So what I'm going to do, I've got a really skinny border up there, so the first thing I'm going to do is go out of Quick Mask, deselect that, and go to the crop tool. And I'm going to make sure I click on Content Aware, and I'm going to pull that up so I've got more of a border there, and down here a little bit more of a border there, and click OK. Or return, sorry, click return or enter, depending on whether you're Mac or PC. And so now I have a little bit more border to work with. It did a pretty nice job. I could clone up here if I wanted to add a little bit more in there, but it's fine. We're going to pretty much blur that out. So again, I'm going to come in here and come inside pretty much an equal distance from the borders, and I can move that border. If I have not gone to any other tool after the marquee tool, I can just arrow it up and arrow it down. Now I'm going to go into Quick Mask again, and this time, since I want it to be soft edge, I'm going to go to the blur, Gaussian blur, and we see how soft or hard that edge is going to be. It's a little bit harder than I want it to be, so I'm going to pump up that figure, and I'm seeing it as it's going to be selected. So you can see there's a fall off from about here till about here, where there's different ranges of transparency. It doesn't get fully non-selected until the very edge there, and even then it might be kind of bleeding into it. So I'm going to go into about 200 here and click OK. And now when I hit the marching ants again, when I go back to them by hitting Quick Mask, you'll see I still see marching ants, but now they're hitting the 50% where it's 50% selected. When I copy and paste this to a new layer and turn off the background layer, you'll see what's happened here. Let me put in a white background so you get a better view of this without the so you can get. I'm going to put this on a white background so you can. I've put this on a white background so you can see a little bit more clearly what's happening with that feathered edge. See how it just blends off softly. Okay, But as the crazy guys in the infomercials say, that's not all. Okay, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to make these layers all invisible because we're going to go back and do the same thing again from the start here. Go to Quick Mask by hitting the letter Q. This time we're going to go into, let's go into Pixelate and do Crystallized and see what happens to the edge when we do that, because we've got an edge here that is going to be affected by filters. So if we crystallize something, and if I bring this over so I can see the preview, you should be able to see, there we go, see how it's giving me a little bit of a ratty edge there? I can make it rattier or less ratty. There we go. That's not all. I can add more if you want it to look like a little bit of a tattered edge. That may be a great option for you. I can go in here and I can choose any of these that I want. I can add noise to it so I get a little speckled effect. I can add a wave to it or a zigzag to it or spherize it. Let me do that so we get a little bit of a difference there. So you can see any of the filters that are available to you that aren't grayed out, you can use those on this quick mask just the way you would use it on a black and white image, because it is basically the same technique that you would use. It's 256 shades of going from the non-selected area to the selected area. Selected area would be 255, the non-selected would be 0. So that is what we're talking about here. I can come back in here and put a tiny little bit of Gaussian blur on there. Way too much, just a little bit to soften those edges. Okay, let us try one more filter just for a little bit of fun. And we'll go in and try Facet. And add that and go back to, no, not color halftone, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Crystallize, one more time. I want to make those cells a little bit bigger. And there you go. Okay, so you can see how you can change a selection, hit the letter Q. Now when I copy and paste it over itself, I'm going to put it above that white background so you can see it. You've got a totally different effect there. So that's why quick masking is pretty awesome to use. The other reason is that if you have a selection and I go in here and I want to make a quick mask of this, I could come in here and use my paintbrush and use it in black and go around the edge like this. Just switch to white if you have an area where you've gone in, and you can come in and clean up any selection that you've made in this way as well. The other thing you can do is you can also come in with Quick Mask and use any of the marquee selection tools. So I could come in here and say I don't want a full flower, I want a half a flower. Option delete, so that part of it is no longer selected. I can also come in here with the pen tool and tell it I want to delete part of that selection by doing the same thing. Use the pen tool to, add to the selection or subtract from the selection, and you get the idea. There's just so many ways that you can modify a selection, plus you have it visually right in front of you as to what the selection is going to be, and that can be very, very helpful. Okay, so let me get this out of the way. That was the selection we just made, and that is a little primer on the quick selection tool and how you can really modify selections and see what they're going to look like before you commit, as well as use filters on those selections. So have fun, try it out.